Hello, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends. We are here.
From the discovery of
So IGN posted that they were able to play about 6 hours of Nightreign. We're only getting about 10 minutes of it. We're crimping this in its entirety, and we're gonna be doing commentary the entire way through because, of course, we are. This is Elden Ring, Nightreign, and I want to see everything. So let's start with this. This is they're starting with screen cap from Elden Ring directly.
sprawling subterranean otherworlds to the startling second phases that completely turned the tables in so many of its boss fights, 2022's Elden Ring was a
Fuck that meteor attack in general. Like, I still haven't figured out how to dodge it properly, and it still fucks me up in the Radon fight at the end of Shadow of the Erdtree.
mesmerizing
This bitch.
action RPG adventure that surprised players at every turn. Now, more than 2 years later, it appears that developer From Software
Oh, there's some nice axes in the back. I also like the Gundams with the up
isn't
front.
done with pulling the rug out from under the feet of its fan base just yet. With the surprise reveal of Elden Ring Nightreign, a standalone co-op spin-off that
I still think that like these are like the shadows of like the giants that are buried under the earth.
takes the cautious dungeon crawls of Elden Ring and turbocharges them into propulsive slash and dash speedruns. After spending some 6 hours of hands-on time with this bold new spin on From Software's own Souls-like formula, I can confirm that Nightreign is shaping up to be something truly unique. If Elden Ring was one of 2022's
I do like how like there are modes of like combat here that result in like obviously like with that like you able to clear multiple enemies at once, turning like one of the things I love about higher level Elden Ring play is the ability in the toolkit to basically clear and just defeat tons of enemies at once, and the power feeling that comes from that. So I'm hoping that they're able to replicate that here.
biggest chart-topping hits, then Nightreign would appear to be its dance floor-filling remix. Chopped up, intensified in beats per minute, and designed to both excite fans of the original and broaden its appeal to the masses.
All right, Tristan Olive, let's see.
Now, unfortunately, because it was such an early build of the game that I played, I wasn't able to capture any footage, even
Tragic.
though it was running great on PlayStation 5. So I apologize for the generic footage I'll be using here, and also for my generic face.
It's okay, Tristan. I have a generic face too.
Anyway, here's how Nightreign breaks down. Imagine stepping back into the opening area from the original game, only nothing in the landscape seems to be where you remember it. Also, there are 3 of you now, and everything seems to be happening at a much higher tempo. That's Nightreign in a nutshell. You squad up with 2 other players at the start of each round, get dropped into a densely packed alternate reality chunk of Limgrave that has both its enemy types and structures randomly shuffled around at the beginning of each session, and it's
So I love that fact about it simply for like the reality of like I am one of those people that loves the concept of randomly generated content in the sense of there it is an addition of just more of the game. So what do I mean by this? So I like the Elder Scrolls Online. I generally like the combat of Elder Scrolls Online. Sometimes when I play the Elder Scrolls Online, I just want to shut my brain off, fight shit, and not have to think about things. Now, the best way to do that normally is to do a 4-person dungeon. The problem with that is that you have to actually coordinate. And so you can't completely shut your brain off. I mean, for normal, base game dungeons, you can, but unless you're queuing as a tank, those are going to take forever. And when you're playing a tank, you have to think, sadly. Which is why I like the Endless Archive, a endless dungeon, which you can go through and fight and kill things, and after you beat every random boss, that and with the added benefit of like, oh, I remember that boss. I haven't seen that in forever. I remember where that's from. You get some loot, and it's just a nice way for me to engage with the game in a way that I like. Um, Another example is Bloodborne's Chalice dungeons, which are just randomly generated things where you can get some interesting loot and other things. It's cool. The one thing I want to note about these 2 examples is that there's an entire other feature complete game that you have paid for that you can go and experience. And then when you've done all of that, or even when you haven't done all of that and you just want to do it, there's always going to be something new and fresh for you to experience, which is part of the reason I'm so excited for Nightreign, in which I'm kind of devastated they're not putting it in Elden Ring itself. Because this, as a function or a mode of Elden Ring, like as a DLC option, would make me so fucking happy. You know how excited and engaged I would be. Like, I wouldn't really feel compelled to keep going doing further New Game Pluses. I would just ride this shit. But the fact that it exists at all and I get to have that Elden Ring kick at all with something like this does make me happy.
Up to you and your squad mates to build up from your lowly level 1 character status as fast as possible by harvesting runes and earning Destiny style loot drops as you slash and dash through every enemy filled camp that you come across. So what's the big rush? Well, each session of Nightreign is structured as a 3-day cycle, with each in-game day taking about 15 minutes to complete. At the start of the first day, you can pretty much pick any direction to plot your whirling path of destruction along, but as day approaches night, the space you can operate in narrows, and you're liable to be killed by acid-like rain should you find yourself caught for too long beyond the perimeter of the rapidly shrinking circle on the map, known as the Ring of Rain.
So it's rain, not fire, that's doing
that. In that regard, Nightreign is a bit like Fortnite, only with more medieval forts and knights and considerably less TikTok dances. Once the Ring of Rain reaches its smallest diameter at the end of the day, a major boss fight is triggered. Like the rest of Nightreign's enemies, these end-of-day bosses are always randomized, and during my repeat runs, I experienced clashes with familiar returning foes like a draconian tree sentinel, as well as some brand new nasties like the centipede, a towering, twisting swarm of disgusting limbs, prone to detaching its body parts in an attempt to divide itself and conquer my crew.
So that's one of the things that I'm kind of curious to see what they do with the AI here. So, in Shadow of the Erdtree, the AI is better to not like it bosses in Shadow of the Erdtree focus their attention much better between characters, whether you're playing with multiplayer or with NPCs. Um, the base game ones are still very much this is for single player type shit. So I'm curious with Nightreign, like how they like I'm hoping that they take the lessons that they learned from Shadow of the Erdtree. Like this is not going to work as a multiplayer game unless the boss AI is not only good at um juggling three people effectively, but also like I hope that when they do the single player mode, it's balanced appropriately for one person. Hopefully.
The day 1 boss dealt with, day 2 begins and the Ring of Rain rescinds, allowing your squad to take a breath, regroup, and then resume ransacking the map for upgrades in preparation for the more challenging foes to come at the end of days 2 and 3. It's a structure that allows for a gradual build of tension before a palpable sense of accomplishment and release with each boss felled.
So basically, like, it's just a 45-minute at a time, chunk of like, the culminating feel of like fighting boss fights and like the feeling you get of reward you get inside from completing Soulsborne bosses.
Over time, my squad mates and I became a well-oiled machine as far as getting the balance right between beelining for churches to snatch up valuable HP flasks and taking down the more major overworld enemies like dragons and hippos in order to get maximum
Okay, so they are adding the hippos and stuff back. So they're doing both Shadow of the Erdtree enemies and Elden Ring enemies. That's cool.
XP boosts for Buck before the map was cast back into darkness. We were also able to eventually settle upon the best combination of heroes for our group. You see, Nightreign doesn't feature the lengthy list of generic character classes that the original Elden Ring did, and players won't have to Google the difference between vague-sounding archetypes like the Prisoner and Wretch when they first hop into play. Instead, Nightreign offers 8 different heroes to choose from, each with very clearly identified strengths and weaknesses, in order to make it as easy to jump into as possible. 4 were playable in the preview build. Wilder is an all-rounder hero type with a good balance between speed and attack power. Guardian is a burly tank type with heavy attacks and increased damage resistance. Duchess is a nimble type with fast attacks and a killer quick-step ability.
So Dex.
And Recluse is a mage type with ranged magical attacks. Additionally, each character features a unique skill and ultimate attack that both operate on cooldown timers.
Okay.
Wilder is able to use his hookshot skill to either reel in smaller enemies like Scorpion in Mortal Kombat, or to quickly zip past the swinging arms of a major boss in order to sneak a few strikes in from behind. Guardian is able to conjure up a mini tornado to knock swarms of enemies off their feet, while Recluse can put a marker on an enemy so that every time that enemy is attacked, the damage is siphoned into boosts for her own HP. These unique abilities are all extremely useful in their own right, but finding ways to combine them with the special moves of your squad mates is key to surviving Nightreign's toughest enemy encounters.
I don't know how I feel about that. Oh. See, what I was hoping for is, you getting uh depending on the classes present in the game, certain types of loot will be generated in the world, and spells, weapons, things of that nature that people can play into and things of that nature. I don't particularly know how I feel about abilities and stuff like that having cooldown timers. I was hoping it would be like the class you pick has like decent predefined gear, and then there's upgrades and stuff you can find in the world as you explore and kill camps. I don't know how I feel about that. Still excited, don't know how I feel about that.
One strategy that my squad grew to rely on quite heavily was to unleash a damaging ultimate attack on an enemy, such as Guardian's swooping dive bomb, then immediately follow it up with Duchess's restage skill, which basically creates an instant replay of the last attack landed and allows you to double the total amount of damage inflicted. It's in finding killer combinations of moves such as these that the co-op focus of Nightreign really shines. And after multiple failed attempts, my squad was finally able to progress through to the third day of the cycle, which climaxed in a fight against a snarling, Cerberus-like beast called Gladius, which forced my team to coordinate and queue up skills and ultimate attacks with painstaking precision in order to overcome it. Gladius is just the first of 8 major bosses to take down in Nightreign, each with their own 3-day cycle leading up to them. In addition to the randomization of enemy types and structures, further wrinkles will be introduced into each boss cycle, such as live volcanoes and forests full of rot, in an effort to prevent the landscape from ever growing too predictable. That's along with random events like meteor strikes, swarms of giant ants to fend off, and the surprise invasion of powerful tormentors like Margit the Fell Omen in an attempt to impede your progress. In addition to the approachability of its roster of playable characters, Nightreign has polished up a lot of Elden Ring's more abrasive edges to make it a far more friction-free experience. Okay. A new wall jump move allows you to quickly hop up and over steep sections of the terrain.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. When you're having a game like this that is like very much you have to get the fuck out of the way, move like Sekiro-esque type of movement like that is going to be necessary.
While the removal of any fall damage means you can lunge off cliffs or down dark holes without pausing to study your surroundings for safe platforms.
So that's going to be fun. I think given that like traversal is like secondary and like you're being careful like that, like the world is going to be less punishing. I'm not opposed to that.
You only need to walk near a site of grace to top up your health and flasks. And if you want to spend some runes to level up, you just button mash through pages of auto leveling that best suits the base traits of your chosen character, rather than having to agonize over whether you should allocate a point to faith or dexterity, for example. It all gives each session the feeling of being shuttled along in an intense speed run.
So they streamlined a lot of the Elden Ring stuff, which is fine. I mean, for what it is, given that you're not holding onto this character through different playthroughs, it makes sense.
And you can get around even faster by using spectral hawks to vault across great distances of the map. Death is not necessarily the end in Nightreign either. If you find yourself down, you have a near-death meter that appears above you, and your squad mates must attack you while you crawl along the ground until the meter is reduced and you can return to the fray. It may sound slightly odd to basically kick a friend while they're down, but it's a system that works quite well.
I actually think that's good because like that means that it's more fluid. You can if you are doing attacks and stuff and like you're right by the boss, you're weaving in like fucking attack my friend with 2 things, attack the boss, weave at a friend, and that actually makes a whole bunch of sense to me.
Particularly since you can use
It also means that you don't need a dedicated healer.
ranged attacks like magic or crossbows to revive a down squad mate from a distance without the risk of putting yourself in harm's way. Should all 3 of you be wiped out at once, it's the end of the session, and you must restart day 1 with everyone back at level 1. So you need to stay on your toes in order to keep the rest of your squad on their feet whenever possible. While there's no doubt that elements of it are inspired by the likes of Destiny and Diablo 4, it needs to be said that Elden Ring Nightreign is not a live service game. Once you buy it, you get access to the complete package, and there are no battle passes or microtransactions to contend with. It can also be played in single player should you wish to stay offline, with enemy health pools that scale down so that it's not too overwhelming for solo players.
Thank God. Okay, that's actually wonderful. I love that. That's exactly what I was worried about. So I didn't know if they're going to scale it down or not. I'm glad they are. So, and also because it is like that, if we play an offline mode, that means that the modding scene for this is going to go crazy.
Although, curiously, there are currently no plans to allow players to play in pairs. As someone
That's dumb, but I understand.
who has sunk hundreds of hours into Elden Ring, both in the original 2022 game and this year's Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, I can confidently say that From Software is onto something truly spectacular with Nightreign. Cutting throats at breakneck speed with a pair of friends in tow has been a consistently exhilarating experience so far, and especially gratifying when you work together to topple its toughest bosses using each character's special abilities in tandem. Assuming the developers can throw enough randomized elements to keep each 3-day assault feeling fresh, then Elden Ring Nightreign could well provide an exciting change of pace for existing fans and an enticingly accessible entry point for newcomers when it launches sometime in 2025.
I agree. I think that this is going to be a great way to get friends of mine who have no interest in playing FromSoft games into it.
So, what do you think? Are you excited for Elden Ring Nightreign, or do you prefer things slow and steady rather than rough and ready?
Well, I mean, I will be honest, I like the rough and ready, like to quote Coast Contra, I'm a Philly, I'm ready, rubber like whoever, but regardless, jokes aside, um, I'm stoked about this. Night Rain is going to be really, really awesome. I'm super excited for it. Definitely, like as you can see, I did a breakdown trailer originally for this anyways. Either way, I'm super stoked for this. I hope you guys are too. God knows we're gonna be doing runs and stuff on stream. Holy shit, this is gonna be great. It sounds to me like, with the exception of like, I understand. I'm not sure how I would have rathered like them like make the abilities and stuff be like mana dependent and Ashes of War, but if they're just doing it with cooldown and shit, I get it. I'm not particularly thrilled about that, but I understand. Um, Let me spam for fuck's sake. But regardless, I'm stoked about this. I can't wait. I'm gonna send y'all a pre-recorded Evan now.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to talk to me outside of this video, outside of live streams, or just join the community and be a part of it, you can do so at HIMediaTV/Discord. Discord links there. We'd love to have you. And given the financial situation of the economy right now, I know this is a tall ask, but if you have the scratch to spare, please consider donating and becoming a supporter at HIMedia.gg/tip. All of our perks are serviced through our Discord channel, including early access videos, exclusive videos, and more. Your generosity is a blessing, and $1 a month is a boon to my mental health. Thank you so very much for watching. I appreciate you, and have a great day.